What's good, sports fans? Are you ready to elevate your live entertainment experience? Well, let me introduce you to SeatGeek, an amazing platform that connects you to your favorite events while saving you money. With SeatGeek, you can easily find tickets for sports games, concerts, and so much more, all in one place. The interface is user-friendly, making it simple to browse and compare prices. And one of the best features is the interactive seating chart. You can see exactly where you'll be sitting and how much you'll be spending, ensuring you get the best value for your money. But here's the best part. Check this out. By using my promo code, ChalkItUpSports, you can enjoy a one-time $20 discount on your first SeatGeek order. That's right, $20 off your first SeatGeek order. Imagine catching that thrilling game or concert without breaking the bank. It's a win-win situation. Plus, you'll be a part of a community of fans who eat, sleep, and breathe live events just as much as you do. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description to download the SeatGeek app today. And don't forget to use my promo code ChalkItUpSports for a one-time $20 discount on your first SeatGeek order. Get excited. Now let's get back to the show. What up, what up, what up, what up? This is your boy, Tone DeShields II. You guys are locked in on your dose of Chalk It Up Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge it to the game. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. It means a lot to me. It goes a long way. This content does not move without the people, and it's in your hands, okay? Exercise your power as a consumer. Make sure you guys are locked in. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Make sure you guys are completely engaged. And if you're listening to this show on your own accord, on your own time, if you're not locked in while we're live, that's totally okay. You guys have the option of locking in on Spotify. You have the option of locking in on Apple Podcasts as well. And you can double back on YouTube, but make sure you guys are commenting. Make sure you guys are giving us good ratings here. Make sure you guys just stay engaged, man. I appreciate it. Love you guys. It means a lot to me. It goes a long, long, long way. All right. So, got some things to get into with you guys, as I always do. Let me fix this chair a little bit. Sitting a little too low for me. All right. So, got some things to get into with you guys, as always. The NFL draft is behind us. We are officially neck deep into the 2025 season. We're here. Your new draft class is here. And I'm excited to see where this thing goes. I'm looking at you guys in the live chat, man. I appreciate all you guys being here. KGK, RJ, S Blunt, Alex, Keisha White, Jerry Potter, Sweet Chin Music, D Aldridge, J Pope. Appreciate you, Carlos Rosado, Joe Benji, Tiffany Dark Chocolate. Thank you for being here. I appreciate y'all. It means a lot to me. And all you guys who are tuned in, thank you so much for locking in the way you guys do. Based Allah, thank you. Showing Eagles Nation, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. So I've seen various opinions about the Philadelphia Eagles draft class, right? I've seen varying positions, varying perspectives. Some people like the draft class. Some people aren't impressed. You know, I've seen some people give the Eagles an A in terms of value for their draft class. I've seen people try to nitpick it because they're not familiar with all the players. I've seen people nitpick Howie, Roseman, and the Eagles trading back in various scenarios. Me, personally, genuinely, I don't have too many complaints about this draft class. I understand what the goal was for this draft class. The Philadelphia Eagles, they're they're pretty loaded all across this roster. And if you really think about how the draft went, they they were basically just trying to fortify this roster with guys that could do a few different things, guys that are versatile, guys that can add depth to various positions. This wasn't a draft class where you were looking for somebody to change the direction of your franchise or change the direction of one side of the ball or one position group, right? Like this wasn't that kind of draft class where you felt like you needed to find a complete game changer. Now, if you draft well and you evaluate well, you're going to find people who can change the trajectory of what you do for the better, of course, right? Now, I want to rehash the draft class with you guys, if you would be so kind. So, this is your Eagles 2025 draft class. And the one thing that stands out to me above all else, the Philadelphia Eagles took 10 players. They took 10 players. And that's something I didn't really anticipate. I didn't expect that. I also didn't expect them to pick 4 players in a single round. But once you get to that end of the draft, when you get in the 6th round, all that kind of stuff, now you're just trying to make sure you can get as much value as you can. So you want to try you want to try to get as many good players as you can. So, the Eagles, they did have 4 5th-round draft picks. They ended up taking 3 guys in the 5th round, right? I think in total, the Eagles had 7 draft picks or 8 draft picks on the day of, and they ended up with 10. Let me make sure I got this right here. Let me see. I'm looking at this draft class, or not this draft class, but I'm looking at the Eagles draft picks. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They went into this draft with 8 picks and they drafted 10 players. And look, we all have our opinions about why they made the decisions they make. The reality is there's one thing that can be disputed. This Eagles roster didn't need too much. It didn't need too much. And and also another reality that comes with drafting, you always have a plethora of players that you would like to get if they fall to you. And you always got to have players that you would get if you have to pivot. So I don't think the Eagles veered too far off from the goal. I don't think the Eagles veered too far off from the ultimate goal. When you look at the offense, they got a bunch of guys at skilled positions on the offensive line that are solidified, that are paid and locked up until 2028, 2029. The offense is pretty much solidified. You just need depth on that side of the ball, right? And then on the defense, okay, you lost Josh Sweat. You lost CJ Well, you traded him, but you know what I mean. You lost Milton Williams, Isaiah Rodgers, Darius Slay. Did I say Milton Williams? You lost Oren Burks. I'm trying to think who else you lost. BG retired, right? BG retired. So you lost some guys. So when you look at this roster prior to the draft, but after those losses, you got Quinyon Mitchell, who's a starter, Cooper DeJean, who's a starter, Reed Blankenship, who's a starter, Zach Baun, who's a starter, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Moro Ojomo, Thomas Booker IV, Gabe Hall, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., Tristan McCullum, Andre Sam, Sidney Brown, Kelly Ringo, Eli Ricks. Like, you have a talented roster. And most teams can't even say they have a roster built like that. That's the thing that people got to understand. Before the draft, most teams didn't even have a roster as good as the Eagles. I think we can all agree with that. Prior to the draft and post free agency, there's not a single team that can say that can say top to bottom they were as talented as the Eagles prior to the draft. And that's why this draft class, a lot of these picks, some of these picks, especially Jahad Campbell, Andrew Makuba, those were luxuries. Ty Robinson, like, you know, a lot of these guys that they got, they probably really don't need them to be what other teams would need them to be. Like, we drafted Ty Robinson. He's a good player. We don't need Ty Robinson to be a game changer. We drafted Jahad Campbell, but we don't need Jahad Campbell to be a game changer right now. Now, will he be? I think he will. But every team has different needs and different requirements going into these draft classes, and their expectations are different. I think the Eagles were in a position where they didn't have to reach. They didn't have to make any drastic moves. And the rumor is they wanted to move up further to get Jahad Campbell. They were afraid Jahad Campbell was going to get taken. The rumor is they wanted to move up further, like into the early 20s. They were trying to move up to get Jahad Campbell. But he just so happened to fall to them. Now, another thing we've talked about is the top 30 visits and how sometimes the top 30 visits can give us that sometimes the top 30 visits can be an indicator of who they're targeting. We talked about that. Sometimes the top 30 visits can be an indicator of who they're targeting. But ironically enough, they didn't draft a single player that they brought in for top 30 visits. They didn't. But what stands out to me is that they still targeted the positions that they brought in for a top 30 visit. But again, top 30 visits aren't the end-all be-all, but sometimes it can be an indicator for what they're looking for. In particular when it comes to positions. So, yeah, you know, we kind of married ourselves to some of those names. You know, we saw Walter Nolan. We saw Malachi Starks. You know, we saw Nick Scorton and Donovan Izaraku. We saw Josh Connolly Jr. We saw all these guys that we liked. But the reality is other teams are drafting as well. So it's going to be hard to get all those guys. And also, I think the biggest thing I took from it, especially when I compare it to the draft class now, is the fact that although they didn't get the players they were looking for, or the players they brought in for a top 30 visit, rather, let me not say the players they were looking for. Let me rephrase that. Although they didn't get the players that they brought in for top 30 visits, although they didn't get those guys, when you look at the positions that they were targeting in the top 30 visits, it gives you an idea of what they were looking for. They were looking to reload in the trenches. They were looking to get guys that were versatile. Now, let's look at this, right? In the first round, they brought in Jahad Campbell out of Alabama. Jahad Campbell was one of the most versatile linebackers in this draft. Jahad Campbell, but before when he came into Alabama, he was an edge rusher. He came into college as an edge rusher, but because Alabama was so deep at the edge position, they asked him, "Hey, would you like?" Or they felt like, "Hey, you have the capabilities to play off-ball linebacker or inside linebacker. You have the capabilities to play linebacker in the box." And because he's so talented, because he's so athletically gifted, his edge rusher capabilities became an additional asset to what he was able to prove he can do well. He can drop back in coverage. He can run sideline to sideline. He can set the edge. He tackles well. He can blitz coming downhill in the A gaps. He's a guy that showed that, hey, not only can I rush the passer, I can do way more than that. So although he was drafted at linebacker, don't be surprised if you see the Philadelphia Eagles put him on the edge or move him around in general. We've seen Vic Fangio move guys around. We've seen moments where Nolan Smith is going forward. Nolan Smith is dropping back. We've seen situations where Jalen Hunt is dropping back. Jalen Hunt is going forward. Remember, Jalen Hunt, although he was drafted as an edge rusher and off-ball linebacker, Jalen Hunt was a safety at first. He was a safety that converted to edge. So he brought those coverage capabilities. He brought that ranginess to the edge rusher position, which allowed Vic Fangio to be versatile with how he used him. Right? Andrew Makuba, second round out of Texas. Andrew Makuba is a hitter, a guy that can cover, a guy who's physical, has to get a little bigger, put some muscle on, put some size on, but a guy that's physical, plays with swagger, plays with heart, a guy that fears no man. But he can cover. He's rangy enough to cover the post. He's rangy enough to be able to cover those dig routes. You feel what I'm saying? Andrew Makuba is a guy that has ball skills and plays the game with bad intentions. Right? Ty Robinson, 6'5", 288. This dude ran a 4.83 40-yard dash time. 4.83. They brought in the corner, Mac McWilliams out of UCF. Linebacker, Smael Mondon out of Georgia. The interior offensive lineman, Drew Kendall out of Boston College. Drew Kendall, he's a guy that's a center, but also has guard capabilities. They brought in a quarterback to develop, Kyle McCord. We ultimately don't know what Tanner McKee's future is. Maybe Tanner McKee eventually gets a job elsewhere. But Tanner McKee, I believe, is entering year 3. So eventually the Eagles are going to develop quarterbacks behind Jalen Hurts. This is how it goes. That's what they do. You got to make sure you got a guy. Now, granted, they have Dorian Thomas Robinson, right? Tanner McKee backing up Jalen. So Kyle McCord, productive college quarterback. I think he led the nation in passing yards. Miles Henson, offensive tackle out of Michigan. Cameron Williams, tackle out of Texas. So you reload, so you bring in 3 additional guys on your offensive line. I told you guys in this draft class, the Eagles are going to walk away with 2 offensive linemen minimum. I said that. And they walked away with 3. 2 tackles and 1 interior guy that has center and guard flexibility. And they brought in an edge rusher, an off-ball linebacker, and Antoine Powell Ryland out of Virginia Tech. I think a lot of people believe that the Eagles got top 5. The Eagles were top 5 in terms of value. Top 5 in terms of, where they picked these guys versus who they got. The Eagles were ranked as one of the top 5 teams to come out of the draft with the best value. And also, you have the coaches in the building. Shar, you're absolutely right. They have the coaches in the building. They had the coaches in the building to develop these guys. The Eagles were able to retain so many of their coaching staff, the entire defensive coaching staff. The only person they lost was Kellen Moore on offense and Doug Nussmeier. That's the only people they lost. But you retained your entire defensive coaching staff. Vic Fangio's going to get these guys right. Notice how the first person Jahai Campbell met, it was Jeremiah Washburn. Jeremiah Washburn, he coaches the off-ball linebackers. He coaches the edge rushers. So he coaches Nolan. He coaches Jalen Hunt. He coaches Bryce Huff. He's going to be coaching Aziz Ojolari, Josh Uche, Patrick Johnson. I'm sure Zack Baun and Kobe Dean have had meetings with Jeremiah Washburn. All the Eagles linebackers are versatile. They're all versatile. Right? BG, when he was here, Josh Sweat, Jeremiah Washburn met Jahai Campbell personally. It's the reason he was the first person he met. Now, Bobby King, he coaches the inside linebackers. He coaches middle linebacker. He's like a linebacker coach. They're all having meetings together. These guys are a part of a versatile defense. You got to be multiple. You got to be fast. If you notice, the narrative behind all these guys is how fast they are, the speed. Listen to this. Shit is crazy. Let me see if I can find. Let me just read y'all the 40-yard dash time of all these guys. See if I can find it real quick. So, listen to this. Listen to this real quick, okay? Ty Robinson, defensive tackle. He ran a 4.83 40-yard dash. Andrew Makuba ran a 4.45 40-yard dash. Who else we got here? Jahai Campbell ran a 4.52. Mac McWilliams. Mac McWilliams, he ran a 4.41. Smile Mondon ran a 4.58. And I'm just talking about the guys on defense. Antoine Powell Ryland. Ran a 4.69. A 4.69. A lot of these guys have crazy speed for their position. A lot of these guys are rangy, sideline to sideline. Howie Roseman wasn't just drafting talent; he was drafting guys that had traits that they can tap into and help them deal with the quarterbacks they're going to have to deal with in their conference and in their division. In my humble opinion, the Eagles look at this division and they say to themselves, I'm only paying attention to the Commanders. Jaden Daniels is a fast dude. Jaden Daniels is a guy that can crack the edge easily. So you want to make sure you got guys that are rangy, they got speed, got quick get off, they can set the edge, guys that are physical, play the game with bad intentions. All the little intricacies of the game that require coaching up, like tackling and gap discipline, pad level, things of that nature. All these guys have flaws in their game because they're rookies. All these guys got flaws in their game. They're rookies. But we have the coaching staff, and it's proven. We have the coaching staff that can get all these guys right, that can teach these guys the art of tackling on the NFL level, teach these guys how to keep their pad level consistent, teach these guys how to have consistent routine. These guys aren't entering a situation that hasn't been proven. These guys are entering legacy. These guys are entering a franchise that just won a Super Bowl. Been to 2 Super Bowls in the past 3 years. Won 2 Super Bowls in the past 7 years. These guys are entering legacy. These guys are entering a standard, a culture of winning. So anything that they came in with, that's a bad habit. Best believe Nick Sirianni, Vic Fangio, Jeff Stoutland, Clint Hurt, Christian Parker, Joe Casper, Jeremiah Washburn, Aaron Moorhead, Kevin Patullo, all those guys. And I know I'm missing some names. I'm missing some names. Roy Anderson, who coaches the corners. Who else? Michael Clay on special teams. Jamal Singleton, the running back coach and assistant head coach. Bobby King, Jason Michael, who coaches tight ends. Aaron Moorhead, who coaches wide receivers. Washburn. All these guys. They're going to make sure these guys iron out all of the little intricacies, all the nuances in their game. But you have to have something to work with. You don't want to draft guys and you ain't got nothing to work with. Think about that. Some teams draft guys and it's like, yo, he ain't got no traits. He ain't got nothing that separates himself. All these guys have traits. They have traits. And we have the coaching staff to get the most out of those traits. And also, let's be honest about this too. Once you get past the third and fourth round, now you got to trust your evaluation, but also you're taking shots in the dark too. That's another thing about this thing that people got to understand. Once you get past that fourth round, now we taking shots in the dark. You know, you evaluate guys. You think about what they did in college. You think about now you're looking at traits. You're looking at things that make them unique. You're looking at things that separate them. You're looking at production. You're looking at character. You're looking at things that you can measure. You're looking at things that you can put a finger on, but ultimately you're guessing, which is why you look for unique traits. Mac Williams, fast as hell. That's a trait. Antoine Power Ryland, how did he fall to the 6th round? How? This draft class is very interesting to me. Very interesting. There were so many things about this draft class that stood out to me. So many things that stood out to me about this draft class. Again, like I said before, one of those things that stood out to me about this draft class, because I have takeaways. I have things that I noticed, and I'm sure you guys noticed them too. One of the things that stood out to me about the draft class is the Eagles went heavy on defense. Heavy. Their first, 6 picks or 5 picks? Their first 5 picks were on the defensive side of the ball. Linebacker, safety, DT, corner, linebacker. And Jahai Campbell, you might as well put him as like a linebacker / edge. Jahai Campbell is an off-ball linebacker that can drop back in coverage, that can rush the passer. Jahai Campbell, remember, you guys, Micah Parsons, when he got drafted, he wasn't what he is. He wasn't what we know him as. When Micah Parsons was drafted, he was a linebacker, but I think somebody got hurt, and they said, "Hey, let's put him on edge and see what he does." And now Micah Parsons is an edge rusher. He rushes the passer. That's what he does. Every now and again, he may drop back in coverage, but for the most part, Micah Parsons rushes the passer. That's not really what he did in college for the most part. I mean, he got to the quarterback, but that wasn't consistently what he does. The Cowboys, they moved him to edge out of necessity, and they found out, this dude is a problem. So Jahai Campbell, similarly, in college, he came in as an edge rusher, but he mainly played linebacker, rush the passer when necessary. Dropped back in coverage, did everything, ran silent on the sideline. He did everything. So the Eagles, I think the Eagles are definitely going to allow Jahai Campbell to be him, but also they want to test that athleticism. They want to see, can he be a dominant edge rusher in this league? Because if he can, we're going to be able to do a lot with this player. He can rush the quarterback, and he can drop back in coverage and do it well. He can run sideline to sideline. We can move him all over the football field. One of the most annoying things about Micah Parsons, whether you guys like him or not, is that the fact that they move him around, and you got to always know where he is. But the Eagles got a lot of players on this side on defense that you got to know where they are. You got to know where Jalen Carter is. You got to know where Nolan Smith is. You got to know where Zack Baun is. You got to know where Cooper DeJean is. You got to know where he is. Because those are the guys that have free reign, the guys that are rangy. We're going to know where Quinyon is. He's an outside corner. We're going to know where he is, right? But Cooper DeJean, Zack Baun, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. You throw Jahai Campbell in that mix. Those are guys, you have to know where they are. You have to know where they are because they're versatile. They're athletic. They can make plays on the ball. They're physical. They're smart players. So the Eagles went defense heavy. 6 out of their 10 picks were on defense. Their first 5 picks were defense. Then they went O-line heavy. They got a quarterback mixed in there, and then they finished it off grabbing an edge rusher. All these picks tell me is that the Eagles are trying to continue to invest in what got them there. The Eagles got to where they got because of strong offensive line play, strong defensive line play, but most importantly, strong off-ball linebacker play. Strong linebacker play. Ty Robinson enters a room with Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Moro Ojomo, Thomas Booker IV, Gabe Hall. Who else? Byron Young. That's a talented defensive tackle room. Talented. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Moro Ojomo, Byron Young, Thomas Booker IV, Gabe Hall. You add Ty Robinson, his athleticism. That's a talented room. That's a versatile room. Jalen Carter and Moro Ojomo are probably your best pass rushers. You got Jordan Davis and Ty Robinson, who are probably your best run stuffers. You have Byron Young, Thomas Booker IV, and Gabe Hall, who are kind of like tweeners a little bit, kind of like, they do a little bit of everything. But the edge play, the linebacker play, Jahai Campbell, Antoine Powell-Ryland out of Virginia Tech, Smile Mondon out of Georgia. .6'2", 224 pounds. A multi-role linebacker. Ran a 4.58 40 with a 79-inch wingspan. With a 1.52 10-yard split. With an 89% tackling grade. A 75% pass rush grade. A 75% run defense grade. A 71% coverage grade. A guy that can do different things. Versatile. Versatile. And I didn't even get to the guys already on the roster. I love ourlads.com, Alex. This is my favorite website. I use Our Lads all the time when it comes to depth chart. That's my website. I love Our Lads. Absolutely love it. They update the depth chart like crazy. I don't know who run this website, but they stay on it. They stay on it. I'm looking at this Eagles team. You got talent everywhere. You got depth everywhere. The Eagles drafted 10 players. Now, look, every player is not going to make the active roster. Some guys may go to practice squad. Some guys may not make the team in general. It happens. But you got to give yourself enough bullets in the gun. You got to. And then Jeff Stoutland, he's going to do amazing things with these guys. Miles Hinton. Miles Hinton. How big is this guy? Miles Hinton out of Michigan, 6'7", 323. 6'7", 323. Out of Michigan. Who else? Cameron Williams. Out of Texas. 6'6", 317. And remind you, these guys haven't gotten into an NFL program yet. These guys are going to get into their weight room, get that Philadelphia Eagles quality nutrition, and they're going to start to fill out and get their NFL bodies because they're dealing with grown men now. Let's get the Drew Kendall out of Boston College. Drew Kendall, the interior offensive lineman. 6'4", 308, played center, but is very versatile. Ran a 5.05 40-yard dash. That's really, really good for his size. With a 4.51 shuttle, this guy has quick feet. Quick feet. He was the 5th ranked center in the draft. The Eagles got him in the 5th round. Out of all the centers in the draft, he was ranked 5th. According to NFLDraftBuzz.com, that has guard capabilities. You feel what I'm saying? It's a couple other takeaways I got from this draft too. It's a couple other takeaways I got in this draft. Right? Now, here's another takeaway. Obviously, we talked about this briefly. And by the way, you guys, we're going to get more into these player profiles as the days go. You know, I'm going to be dedicating an allotted amount of time to each individual prospect so we can learn more about them individually and how they can impact the Eagles. In today's show, we're just doing an overarching synopsis, a recap of all the draft picks, right? That's what we're doing here. We're going to get into all these guys individually. More content is to come as it pertains to that. We're going to get real familiar with these guys. But today, we're just doing a recap. We're just doing a recap, right? The Eagles did not decide to draft a tight end in the 2025 draft and did not sign one via the undrafted free agent pool. That's something that stood out to me. Let's get to the 2025 free agent pool or the Eagles 2025 undrafted class. Let's get to that because the Eagles, shockingly enough, they did not draft a tight end in the draft, nor did they sign one via the undrafted free agent pool. Now, could that change? Possibly. But as of right now, these are the guys they brought in that's undrafted. They brought in 2 running backs, Montrell Johnson out of Florida and Shunderick Powell out of Central Arkansas. They also brought in Holland Pierce, offensive tackle out of Rutgers. Holland Pierce is a guy we talked about a lot. You guys put him on my resume. Or I'm sorry, put him on my radar. Excuse me. You guys put Holland Pierce on my radar. I didn't know nothing about the guy. I can't remember which one of you guys it was, but Holland Pierce, this guy is what, 6'8"? Holland Pierce is 6'8", 341. I think he's the guy that weighed like over 400 pounds. Yeah, Holland Pierce used to be 450 pounds. Michael Heff says they did get an undrafted tight end, Malik Carr out of Michigan State. You're wrong. You're wrong. And I'm going to explain to you why you're wrong, Michael. I'm going to explain to you why you're wrong in one moment, but you're wrong. The Eagles are looking at him, but I'm going to explain to you why you're technically wrong. So they brought in Holland Pierce out of Rutgers, safety Maxon Hook out of Toledo. They also brought in a slot corner or a safety / corner in Brandon Johnson out of Oregon. He's probably going to play the nickel because he's a small guy. They also brought in cornerback B.J. Mays out of Texas A&M and linebacker Landon Dixon out of Toledo. The Eagles did not bring in a tight end via the undrafted free agent pool. They did not sign one. Operative word, sign. That's the operative word. Sign. These are guys that the Eagles has signed. Signed. Now, when we get to the rookie minicamp invites, when we get to the Eagles 2025 rookie minicamp invites, then we get to the tight end, Malik Carr out of Houston. They also brought in 2 wide receivers, Ife Adie out of Sam Houston State and Nasir Morgan Sr. out of Delaware Valley. They also brought in another linebacker in Joseph Baun out of UCLA and cornerback Isaiah Green out of Campbell University. So these are dart throws. These are dart throws. You know what I mean? Camp bodies. If you like them, you keep them for training camp or OTAs, right? You know. But here's the thing. Here's what needs to be taken from this. Again, the Eagles, they didn't draft a tight end in the 2025 draft. They didn't sign one via the undrafted free agent pool, but they did bring one in via the rookie minicamp invites. So he's not technically under contract, but he's somebody that they're looking at. They want to get a second or third look at. He's somebody they're interested in. But here's the thing. When you don't draft one and you don't even sign one via the undrafted free agent pool, that tells me you don't believe that position is or was a priority for you throughout the draft, throughout the undrafted signings. You're saying that you don't believe that position is a priority, at least right now. Is that fair to say? Is that fair to say that as of right now, based off of their decisions in the draft and post-draft, they've indicated that the tight end position isn't a priority as much as we think it is? I think that's BS. Be more careful. I appreciate you, but I think that's bullshit. I think that's bullshit. With all due respect. Be more careful says not true. That could mean there wasn't anybody they liked. I think that's bullshit. I think that's BS. I'm not buying that. Now, what I will say is this. This is what I will say. Now, the Eagles didn't sign a tight end, right? Again, I'm not just talking about drafting one. They didn't even sign a guy via the undrafted free agent pool. But they found one they liked to invite the rookie minicamp. I'm not buying that. How many tight ends was in this draft? How many? Just give me a roundabout number. I can't even tell you how many. How many? Be More Careful says they didn't bring in anybody for a top 30 visit either. So my point is being proven that they didn't think it was a priority. They felt like they had to place value elsewhere. So here's my perspective on the tight end position right now. Here's my perspective. And by the way, they didn't bring in a quarterback for a top 30 visit, but they drafted one. So you can't use the top 30 visit as a reason. They didn't bring in a quarterback for a top 30 visit, but they drafted one. You see, you can't use that. You can't say they didn't bring one for a top 30 visit, therefore it wasn't one they liked. They didn't bring a quarterback in, but they drafted one. You see what I'm saying? That can't be your reason. That can't be your reason. But here's my perspective on this. Again, they didn't draft one. They didn't bring one in via the undrafted free agent pool. So that begs the question. Do the Eagles intend to work out a contract extension with Dallas Goedert? That's the real conversation I'm trying to have or trying to get to. I think that's the conversation I'm trying to get to ultimately. Do the Eagles intend to work out some kind of contract extension with Dallas Goedert? That's a possibility. Have the trade talks been put on hold? That's a possibility. It's important to keep in mind that Dallas Goedert is entering the final year of his contract and will have an $11.7 million cap hit in 2025. We also didn't see Dallas Goedert name come up in any kind of trade talks on draft day. We didn't see that. Listen, at the very least, you guys, we thought that, hey, maybe they'll make a draft day trade and use Dallas Goedert as bait. We thought that. They didn't even do that. But here's what they did do. Via free agency, they signed 2 tight ends. Kylan Granson, who's 27 years old, from the Colts. And they signed Harrison Bryant from the Raiders, also 27 years old. And they still have former 2023 undrafted free agent E.J. Jenkins on the roster, who's 26 right now. The Eagles clearly like E.J. Jenkins. E.J. Jenkins has been through a lot of roster cuts, and he's made a few cuts. So the Eagles clearly like E.J. Jenkins. They like E.J. Jenkins a lot. So as of right now, as of today, there are 5 tight ends on the roster. Dallas Goedert, Grant Calcaterra, E.J. Jenkins, Kylan Granson, and Harrison Bryant. They have 5 tight ends on this roster. So the Eagles, and if you want to count the guy they brought in, Malik Carr, that they invited for a rookie invitational, if you want to count him, I'll count him. If you want to count him, I'll count him. So there's 5 official guys on the roster, 1 guy they brought in for a rookie invitation. So there's 6 tight ends that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be evaluating. I'm of the mindset that the Philadelphia Eagles felt like we don't need to draft a tight end because A, we want to work things out with Goedert. B, we like where Grant Calcaterra is in his development, and we think he's going to get better. C, we also like our depth at the position. We like E.J. Jenkins. We also brought in 2 free agents as well, in Kylan Granson and Harrison Bryant. And D, we don't really use that position the most. I think we got to take into consideration how the Philadelphia Eagles play football. Primarily, most of Jalen Hurts' targets go to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Dallas Goedert is third on that list, right? But I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see the Eagles increase Saquon Barkley's usage in the pass game. I wouldn't be surprised about that because they really didn't use Saquon that much in the passing game last year. Obviously, he had touchdowns via the air. He had touchdowns in the passing game. He did, but that was on occasion. You know, that was depending on the alignment, whatever it is. I think it all depends on circumstances, but I think the Eagles are going to use the running back a little bit more in the passing game this year. I could be wrong, but I think they're going to use the running back a little bit more this year. But all I'm trying to say is the Eagles primarily use their wide receivers in the passing game. It's the A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith show, and everybody else getting where you fit in. So the Eagles are probably looking at it like, listen, we really don't want to move on from Goedert. Maybe they're looking at it like this, but they also are probably saying, we got to get this money right. Green Wingman with the super chat. Thank you, Greeny. He says, and E. Johnny Wilson fills in as a blocking wide receiver. That's another thing as well. So sometimes we have to think a little bit untraditionally about certain things, right? They got 5 tight ends on this roster. 5. And I think they signed Kylan Granson and Harrison Bryant and kept E.J. Jenkins on the rosters because they felt like we're not drafting a tight end. They probably felt that way. They probably said, no, we're not going to draft the tight end. We're not. We're not quite there yet. But also, I think the biggest thing is the Eagles value Dallas Goedert. Above all, thank you for the super chat, Greeny. I think above all else, the Eagles value Dallas Goedert. They value him. They value what he brings to the table. They value everything about his skills. So they value him. And, you know, I was one of the people that made it very clear. Moving on from Dallas Goedert would be a mistake. I was one of the guys that made it very clear. Moving on from Dallas Goedert would be a mistake. It would be a major mistake. At least moving on from him this soon. I know Dallas Goedert is 30. He battles injuries. You know, I've told you guys the Eagles are 13-2 over the past 3 seasons when he's been hurt. Over the past 3 seasons, Dallas Goedert has missed a grand total of 15 games. 15 games. That's almost a season. And in those 15 games that he's missed over the past 3 seasons, the Eagles are 13-2. So they found a way to win games without Dallas Goedert. They have. But that doesn't diminish his value and what he brings to, in my opinion, at least. Sometimes teams look at it like that, though. Hey, we did it without you. But when you saw Dallas Goedert's contributions in the playoffs, which is really where he's really shown that value in the playoffs, has a catch rate over 80%. I think he's ranked second or third all time in receiving yards in the playoffs for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think he's ranked second or third all time. I could be wrong, though. Yeah, Dallas Goedert is ranked second. Dallas Goedert is ranked second in all-time in career receiving yards in the playoffs. Devontae Smith is first. He's first with 595 yards. Dallas Goedert is second with 562 yards. So, look, Dallas Goedert is a guy you want on your roster. He can block. He can do everything you want. I made a video explaining how much I love that guy. But he got to find a way to stay healthy. And sometimes those things are out of your control. But he has to find a way to stay healthy. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We have over 200 people in the live stream, and we only have 78 likes. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed. It means a lot to me. It goes a long way. I really appreciate the support. That like button is currency. The like button is so vital to what we do here at Chalk It Up Sports. Make sure you guys are also utilizing that comment section as well. Utilize that comment section, especially if you're listening and viewing this after the fact. That comment section is so key with the engagement, with the algorithm. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Again, over 190 people here, only 88 likes. The math not mathing, you guys. Math not mathing. Let's get those numbers up. Let me see. JDM Life said, Tone, I told you we was getting Antoine Powell-Ryland. Solid pick. Oh, did you? I don't remember. If you did, bet. I don't remember. Sorry, bro. S. Blunt says, what grade did you give the draft? That's a good question. It's funny. You know, we always talk about draft grades, right? We do talk about it. So I don't want to pretend like draft grades is something that we just ignore because we use them sometimes. But grading a draft is so difficult because ultimately we don't know what any of these guys are going to become. If anything, all I can really grade is the intention and the value, right? I think given this grade, B plus A minus is fair. I think that's fair. I think B plus or A minus is something reasonable. But again, grading a draft is very difficult. It's very difficult. Anybody's draft class is difficult. I think most of the time when they grade these drafts, they're basing it off of value, player production. Some of these guys I didn't get the chance to study. Like Mac McWilliams, I didn't get a chance to study him. Smile Mondon, I didn't get a chance to study him. Miles Hinton, like some of those guys, like I've looked into Ty Robinson, right? Some of these guys I didn't know about. I'll be honest. I don't want to give you guys false information, but draft grades are just kind of like, we're all guessing. We're all guessing. These teams are guessing at the end of the day. That's the reality. But what I do like overall, though, I like the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles are reloading the roster, giving themselves enough prospects to evaluate. I like how I love their commitment to continuously drafting talented, versatile guys on defense. I love their commitment to youth on defense. I love that. I really do love that. Now, some people think you take a risk going really young on defense, but when you have the right coaching staff like the Eagles do, and you also have young vets, young guys like Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, guys, Reed Blankenship, right? Like, you got guys on this team that's played a lot of football. Like, the Eagles won the Super Bowl with 3 rookies starting. They won the Super Bowl starting 3 rookies on defense. Think about that. Jalix Hunt, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell. They won the Super Bowl with 3 rookies starting on defense. So, if you ask the Philadelphia Eagles, age ain't nothing but age ain't nothing but a number. They believe in drafting smart football players. They believe in drafting football players that are versatile, that are coachable, that have unique traits that they can build on. I think this draft is going to be, you know what I think? I think this can go down as being one of the more underrated draft classes Howie has had. Because I think some people look at this draft class and they see guys that they're not familiar with. And I think that makes people uncomfortable. I think the lack of familiarity with a lot of these guys makes people uncomfortable. Now, granted, if you know, you know. If you know, you know. But I think the unfamiliarity with some of these draft picks makes people uncomfortable. But honestly, me personally, I think about who they drafted, where they drafted them, the positions, the coaching staff. I like what they've done. Trey979, he says, "Yo, Tone, we got to talk so you get to know me. My text be coming off the wrong way." Now, I don't think, well, above all else, Trey, I respect your football opinion. We know we may disagree on certain things, but I think we just disagree on things, and that's okay with me, because all that does is just create better content. I don't think you and I don't think there's a disconnect. I think we just disagree on certain things, but there's also things that we do agree on. I've noticed that too. You know what I mean? So, I appreciate you for being here, bro. You've been a loyal subscriber, a loyal supporter. You're one of my moderators here. You're a member of the channel. Like, Trey, you're somebody that I trust in this space. You're a moderator, which means that I've given you the capabilities to kind of police this live chat. So I know that you're not. One thing I know about you, Trey, if I can tell through your posts, is that you speak your mind, you speak with conviction, and you have morals. That's what I get from our interactions. We just disagree on certain things. That's all. Yeah, we disagree. It's football. It's football, brother. That's all. You know what I mean? It's love with me. It's love with me. All respect, big dog. It's love with me. Now, sometimes I come off very aggressive. I know me sometimes. Sometimes I come off aggressive. So I apologize if I could be a little abrasive. You know, my wife tells me that all the time. I could be a little abrasive. But no, it's all love, bro. It's all love. I like this draft class a lot, though. I like this draft class. I like what we've done. I'm really excited to see what Jahad Campbell, Antoine Powell-Ryland. You guys are really high on Antoine Powell-Ryland. A lot of people are saying like that's a steal. I didn't know about him until the draft, but a lot of you guys are really excited about Antoine Powell. I've noticed that. And as Blunt called him an affordable Bryce Huff, well, I hope he's better. I hope he's better. As a matter of fact, you guys, yeah, give me one player. You guys, give me one player you guys are all really excited about. Give me one player that you feel like is going to really have an incredible production with the Eagles. Who's one guy you guys think is going to really be like, yo, him. Alex with the super chat. Thank you, my man. He says Eagles going young on defense is a good thing because they mold them to fit the scheme and coach them the right way. They won't develop bad habits if they were to build that they would build through free agency, if that makes sense. And Alex, I understand your perspective. I think that's reasonable. I also think it's cost effective. It's cost. Here's the thing. When you spend so much money on offense like the Eagles have done, you have to build your team through the draft. That's why 6 of the 10 players drafted by the Eagles were on defense. 6 of the 10 players drafted was on defense. Let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of the 8 players brought in via the undrafted free agent class is on defense. They got 2 players brought in via the rookie minicamp invites. A linebacker in the corner. The Eagles have brought in a lot of linebacker help. They brought in a lot of defensive back help. You know what I mean? Another thing that stands out is that the Eagles only brought in 1 D tackle. You guys notice that? This entire draft class, the entire undrafted free agent pool, the Eagles only brought in 1 D tackle. Just 1. That says a lot. That says a lot. That goes back to my point a while back where we spoke about the Eagles really like their defensive tackle room. And thank you for the super chat, Alex. I really do appreciate it, man. Thank you. Fanny, what's going on, sis? I appreciate you, Miss Fanny. She says Campbell going to make his presence known and felt. Yo, I think Campbell's going to be a problem. I think Jahad Campbell's going to be vicious, yo. I really do. But the defensive tackle room, the Eagles like their depth there. They only brought in 1 D tackle, and they drafted him in the 4th round, Ty Robinson. A lot of people like him. But that defensive tackle room, you got Jalen Carter, Moro Ojomo, Jordan Davis, Gabe Hall, Thomas Booker IV, Byron Young. That's 6 guys right there. Then you bring in Ty Robinson at 7. So the Eagles like their room. They like their room. And unfortunately, maybe we may disagree, but they didn't draft the tight end, which means they like that room. We may not, as a collective, as spectators, but the Eagles, their decisions, their moves have shown you that they like that room. Although we may disagree, is that something that we can fairly surmise? That based off of the Eagles' decisions, they like that room. And they got like 7 of them on the roster. They got like 6 or 7 of them on the roster. They got 5 under contract and 1 that they brought in for a mini camp invitational. They got 6 of them that they're looking at. We may not agree with it, but they like that room clearly. And it also says they want to work things out with Dallas Goedert, as it appears right now. As it appears right now, they want to work things out with Dallas Goedert. Sweet Chin Music says the room. I can't say that. Dallas for sure. They didn't make any moves to add to it besides free agent. Like we have to see, you can't base it off how you feel. You got to base it off of their actions. Their actions tell you everything. I can't listen. I'm not in their heads. I can't speak to their state of mind. But what I can do, I can speak to their actions. Based off their actions, they want to work things out with Goedert. They like Grant Calcaterra and believe he can get better. They're fascinated or intrigued by the depth they brought in. Kylan Granson, Harrison Bryant. They really like E.J. Jenkins. And they're also curious about Malik Carr out of Houston. Because again, one person may say their actions tell me they didn't like the tight ends and draft positions, they were willing to take them. So in that case, to your point, Sweet Chin Music, to your point. Okay, let's roll with that for a little bit. Let's roll with that for a second. Let's just roll with that for a second. Let's say the Eagles didn't like the tight ends as it relates to their draft positions. Let's just say they didn't like the value. Let's just say that. Let's roll with that for a second, Sweet Chin. Let's roll with that. Let's just say they didn't like the tight ends as it compares to the value with the draft pick. Let's say they didn't like that. If that's the case, but you still want to evaluate tight end, you still want to bring another body in to evaluate, or you still want to find a guy that you think has traits you like, why not sign one via the undrafted class? Why not sign one via the undrafted class? Why not? If you didn't like the value with the draft picks, you mean to tell me you couldn't find a tight end in the undrafted pool that had traits you liked, that had size you liked? Am I off? Am I being unreasonable? I'm asking y'all now. S. Blunt said they brought 2 in already. Yeah, they signed Kylan Granson. They signed Harrison Bryant. They still got E.J. Jenkins on the roster. And they brought in Malik Carr out of Houston to a rookie minicamp invite. They like him, but they don't like him enough to give him an undrafted contract. They want to see what they say. Let me look at Malik Carr's measurables. Let me look at Malik Carr's measurables. I got to find out who he is, man. Okay, Malik Carr, 6'6", 265. That's a big boy. That's a big boy. 6'6", 265, Malik Carr. And he ran a 4.63. What? Traits. He's 6'6", 265 and ran a 4.63. Malik Carr. What? Are you fucking kidding me? I also think the Eagles really like E.J. Jenkins. I think the Eagles really like E.J. Jenkins. But regardless, it always goes back to Dallas Goedert. And I think Dallas Goedert is somebody that they want to work it out with. They want to work it out with Dallas Goedert. I think that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. They want to work it out with Dallas Goedert, and they don't believe they were in need of a tight end. That's how they look at it. That's how they look at it, y'all. All right. Let's see if it's anything out. Oh, yeah, by the way. Another thing I want to get into before we go. This will be our last thing. Another thing I want to get into. Another takeaway. Another draft takeaway for me. Since trading CJ the Eagles have brought in 3 new safeties, all via the incoming draft class. They drafted one guy with the second round pick, Andrew Makuba. Hey, yo, shout out to Miss Ash. Shout out to Miss Ash for showing love on Twitter. I appreciate you, Miss Ash. Thank you. They brought in 3 safeties. Andrew Makuba out of Texas from the second round. And they also brought in Maxon Hook out of Toledo, who has familiar with Quinyon Mitchell, and Brandon Johnson out of Oregon. Now, Brandon Johnson on the depth chart, he's listed as a nickel corner, but he played safety in college. So we'll see how that goes. He's not a big dude at all, so he'll probably be in the nickel. But nonetheless, though, the Eagles brought in 3 safeties. And they drafted one in the second round. We spoke about this on Saturday. Andrew Makuba and Sidney Brown, that's the competition to watch. That's the competition to watch. Will Sidney Brown take that next step? Or will Andrew Makuba come in and take over his track? That's a conversation, man. They both were drafted with similar draft investments or similar draft capital. Andrew Makuba was drafted 64th overall. Sidney Brown was drafted 66th overall. So Makuba versus Sidney, that's going to be fascinating. It's going to be fascinating. Makuba comes in significantly more polished in coverage. Significantly more polished in coverage than Sidney Brown did. I think Sidney Brown is the more physical player, but based off what I've seen from Drew Makuba, based off what I've seen, he's physical too. He's physical too. Like Drew Makuba, and like this is going to be so fun to watch. Bo 1990 says Lewis Cine may have something to say about that. Lewis Cine hasn't even played 10 football games total in the NFL. He got to prove he can stay healthy for me. I mean, no disrespect, but Cine got to prove he can stay healthy. That's all I'm saying. He's barely played football over the past 3 years. Barely played football. He's barely played football over these past couple seasons. And like, come on. Like Cine, he was in Minnesota for what, 3 years or 2 years, and then he went to Buffalo for a season. But overall, Bo, we agree. We want the best guys on the field. We want the best guys on the football field. That's what it comes down to. Got to be productive, got to stay healthy, got to be somebody that the coaches can trust. And remind you, the Eagles signed Lewis Cine prior to the playoffs starting last year or early this year. Prior to the playoffs, the Eagles signed Lewis Cine. So they felt like he had traits that they liked. He just got to stay healthy. They felt that way. He has traits that they like, but he just got to stay healthy. So we'll see about that. But I'm really excited about this competition, mainly between Drew Makuba and Sidney Brown. I'm really curious about that. I'm curious to see. How Bryce Huff looks going forward. Because the Philadelphia Eagles have brought in more people at that position. They signed Josh Uche. They signed Patrick Johnson in free agency. They signed Azeez Ojulari in free agency. They drafted Jihad Campbell, who has edge rusher capabilities. And they drafted Antoine Powell Ryland, who everybody is really high on. Really high on. So that's 5 new bodies. That's 5 new bodies. I didn't even mention Jalen Hunt. But Nolan Smith, listen, I'm going to name all the guys before. I'm going to name all the edge rushers or all the guys who are going to be rushing the passer. I'm going to name all of the off-ball linebackers, all the edge rushers on this roster before I get to Bryce Huff name. Nolan Smith, Jalen Hunt, make sure I got this right here. Nolan Smith, Jalen Hunt, Azeez Ojulari, Josh Uche, Antoine Paul Ryland, Patrick Johnson, KJ Henry, O'Shawn Mathis. And if you want to throw Jahai Campbell in there, sure. 8. No, I'm sorry, 9. So I've named 9 players before I got to Bryce Huff. 9 players. Even if you take Jahai Campbell out of the conversation, 8 players. And I didn't even say Bryce Huff's name yet. Nolan Smith, Josh Uche, Patrick Johnson, O'Shawn Mathis, KJ Henry, Antoine Paul Ryland, Azeez Ojulari, Jalen Hunt. Simple as that. Calvin says, "Oh, I see blocking comments. I don't block comments, bro. So I don't know if you're talking to me or around me or but I don't block comments here. I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the time to do that. Now, what I will say, YouTube does do their own thing when they make the determination, but I don't block comments. So anybody who watches my show knows that I don't block comments. Now, if someone's being disrespectful, antagonistic, racist, prejudice, all the isms. If I don't block comments, bro. I don't. We don't. This is not a political show, so I don't talk government here. You know what I mean? We talking sports, so I don't get into those conversations here. I don't. So I don't know. Calvin says all the so-called experts said the Eagles draft was great. Give it an A+. Well, what do you think, Calvin? What do you think? What do you think, Calvin? What would you give the Eagles draft class? I haven't really given it a definitive grade, but I guess because again, ultimately we're guessing, we're projecting. But I think based off of what they've done, based off of how the team is currently built, the quality of talent, I think they did a good job. I think the Eagles did a good job. A lot of you guys are really high on Antoine Paul Ryland. I think we're all excited about Jahai Campbell. Some of you guys felt like the Eagles should have got Xavier Watts instead of getting Andrew Makuba. But I think most of you are happy about Andrew Makuba. I think all of you are excited about Ty Robinson. But I think overall, though, I think what we can say definitively prior to this draft, There's not a single team that could say they were as loaded as the Eagles. And I'm talking pre-draft. Pre-draft. How many teams can say they had the quality of players such as Quinyon Mitchell, or the combination of quality, the combination of talent? How many teams can say they got a combination of a Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Zack Baun? I'll even throw Reed Blankenship in that combination. Nicole, like what team prior to the draft can say they had a combination of talent like that? Moro Jomo, Jordan Davis, Azeez Ojulari. Not many teams can say they had. Not many teams can say they came into the draft ready to play football. You know what I mean? And then they added Jahad Campbell, Andrew Makuba, Ty Robinson, Matt McWilliams, Smile Munden, Drew Kendall, Kyle McCord, Miles Hinton, Cameron. I didn't even talk offense, y'all. How many teams can say they came in with an offense consisting of an A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, that offensive line with Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Jordan Mailata, Tyler Steen, Lane Johnson, A.J. Dillon backing up Saquon Barkley, Grant Calcaterra backing up Dallas Goedert. Jahan Dodson backing up A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Don't forget the Eagles brought in Terrence Marshall Jr. The Eagles team is talented. This team is talented, man. S. Blunt, my guy, he said, I jumped on with Coach Sunday. My major concern, CB2. I think that's a reasonable concern because we don't really know what that's going to look like. Is it going to be Keely Ringo? Is it going to be Adoree Jackson? Is it going to be Eli Ricks? We don't know. We don't know. That's a real question mark. That's a real question mark. But I think they're going to give Keely Ringo every shot possible. They are. All right, you guys. We're going to call it a show. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. If you guys are listening and tuned in after the fact, if you guys are listening on your own time, make sure you check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and you can rewatch the content on YouTube. Make sure you guys leave a comment in the comment section. I love reading your comments. They're fun. You know, as long as you guys keep things respectful, I really enjoy it. I'm always trying to engage with you guys to increase the overall algorithm there. Make sure you guys take advantage of my partnership with SeatGeek. They're offering you $20 off your first SeatGeek order. All you have to do is download the SeatGeek app and use promo code Chalk It Up Sports whenever you want to buy your tickets. It's baseball season, so I know a lot of you guys want to get out. The weather's getting better, so I know, and also more concerts are going on. You know what I mean? I went to the Kendrick Lamar and the SZA concert this past weekend with wifey. It was spectacular. You know, I utilized that SeatGeek promo code to get $20 off my order. So make sure you guys use Chalk It Up Sports, that promo code Chalk It Up Sports, when you download the SeatGeek app, and you'll get $20 off your first SeatGeek order. All right, you guys, it's been a hell of a show. I'm really, really excited about this draft class. I'm really excited about the undrafted free agents. I'm curious about the rookie minicamp invites. I'm really curious about all those guys. Just as a quick reminder, the Eagles brought in Jahad Campbell out of Alabama, Andrew Makuba out of Texas, Ty Robinson out of Nebraska, Mac McWilliams out of UCF, Smile Mandan out of Georgia, Drew Kendall out of Boston College, Kyle McCord, Syracuse, Miles Hinton, Michigan, Cameron Williams, Texas, and Antoine Powell Ryland out of Virginia Tech. As far as undrafted free agents, they signed running back Montrell Johnson out of Florida, Shunderick Powell, Central Arkansas, wide receiver Taylor Morin, Wake Forest, offensive tackle Holland Pierce out of Rutgers, safety Maxon Hook out of Toledo, slot corner and safety Brandon Johnson out of Oregon, cornerback BJ Mays out of Texas A&M, and linebacker Lance Dixon also out of Toledo. Looks like the Philadelphia Eagles are leaning into this Toledo personnel group. They liked what they got from Quinyon, and they're probably looking at it from the perspective of, hey, let's see what else they got over there. You know, that defensive coaching staff, they developed Quinyon Mitchell, so let's see what else they got out of there. So, and lastly, they brought in, as far as rookie minicamp invitationals, these guys aren't technically signed, but they've been invited to rookie minicamp. You got 2 wide receivers, Ife Adie out of Sam Houston State and Nasir Morgan Sr. out of Delaware Valley. You got tight end Malik Carr out of Houston, linebacker Joseph Vaughn out of UCLA, and you have cornerback Isaiah Green out of Campbell University. All right. So that's your draft class, that's your undrafted class, and that's your rookie invitational class. All right, you guys. It's been a hell of a show. Smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. I've been your humble host, Tone DeShields II, and you guys have been locked in on Chalk It Up Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge it to the game.